The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Unlock the Power of Microsoft SQL Server 2014. My name is Michelle. I'll be helping with today's session. Before we get started, I would like to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate. This webinar is being recorded. We will send you a link to the recording as soon as it is available. You have joined today's webinar listening through your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to use your telephone, just locate the audio pane and select Use Telephone. The dial-in information and access code will then be displayed. Attendees will be in listen-only mode, but we invite you to ask questions about the presentation using the questions panel. Just type in your question and click Send. At the end of the webinar, we will do a Q&A session and take as many questions as possible. Now, let me introduce you to our presenter today. Brian Egler is a Global Knowledge Instructor and Course Director, specializing in Microsoft SQL Server. He has been a technical instructor for over 20 years and has more than 15 years of experience with SQL Server, data modeling, database design, and application development, including IMS, DB2, and Sybase. Every year he runs the Boston Marathon for Cancer Research. Thanks so much, Brian. Welcome, and I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. And yeah, that's a picture of me at halfway. I was happy then. And, I was a little less happy going up those hills, but when I got to the finish line, I was very, very happy. So anyway, that was this week in Boston. It was a great run in the city and a beautiful day for the city of Boston. And we raised a lot of money for cancer research as well. So that was good. It was a good day. I'm recovering, and but I'm sitting down comfortably now. And thanks for signing in today. We're going to talk about SQL Server 2014 and what's new. And I've been able to pick my favorite features to show you, so hopefully you'll enjoy some of those. We'll get to show you those new features and for the release that's just come out in actually earlier this month. Now there's my email, brian.egler@globalknowledge.com. If you have any questions that we don't get to, or you want some follow-up, you can pop me an email there, and at any time, that'd be fine. Okay, so let's take a look at SQL Server 2014, or nicknamed Hackathon, and the big feature is the in-memory database engine, so we're going to take a look at that. But the three main themes for this release as listed here. First of all, mission critical performance. That's the big push for OLTP performance of high throughput systems, and we'll take a look at that theme with that in-memory database engine feature. The second theme is faster insights from any data, and that's another way of talking about business intelligence, getting better performance out of your business intelligence solution as well in your data warehouse. So we're going to take a look at that. And the third theme is platform for a hybrid cloud. So Microsoft is really at the forefront of the cloud computing area now, and really being able to build on-premises databases in conjunction with cloud data is looking to be the way forward. So Microsoft are providing the same tools to support both environments. So we're seeing a lot of traction there too. Now I got to choose my three favorite features, because there's many new features, of course, in 2014, but these are my three favorites, one from each theme. The first one is the in-memory OLTP feature, and that's got a lot of buzz, and is being marketed really as the new high-performance engine of the relational database, up to 50 times performance with the same hardware. So that's something to definitely take a look at. We'll take a look at that feature and how it works, and what restrictions there are, and so on. But then we'll look at the clustered column store index, and this is a new index in 2014. Of course, in 2012 we had non-clustered column store indexes, but that made our tables read-only at that point. That this clustered column store index means you can do updates as well. So we're going to take a look at that. And the new Cloud Migration Wizard helps you move your databases to the cloud if you need to. So I'm going to show you that also. So those are my 3 favorite features anyway in 2014. So let's start with the one that's causing really all the buzz and the interest in the new release. It's the in-memory OLTP engine, and of course this isn't Microsoft's first venture into in-memory technology. They actually started off with Power Pivot in 2008 R2 and Office 2010, and they've also in 2012 had the tabular data model in analysis services, which was an in-memory solution by default. So they gained a lot of success, a lot of technology advances based on that, and so they've really moved that over to the relational engine as well. And so we're going to see in 2014 how this can be used. And I'm going to show you the Table Memory Optimization Advisor, and that's just to advise you, to show you what it takes to migrate a table to be in memory. There are some restrictions there that we have to take note of, but we can effectively move the hot tables in our applications to fully in memory, which of course is going to be much faster than swapping in and out from disk to memory and back and forth. So we're going to see that and we'll see how we can select which tables are going to be the ones we move over to in memory. So the good news is we don't have to move the whole database into memory. We can pick and choose which tables are resident in there in the memory space. We'll see how to do that. Also, to assist this new feature, they've allowed us to do native compiled store procedures, and normally store procedures are interpretive and compiled at runtime, but now you can actually compile them ahead of time into machine code, take up less time and less space, less memory, and optimize that way too. So there's that'll give you performance on both sides. So anyway, and then there's also a way of extending your buffer pool to solid state disk drives. So solid state, and we can extend that and really extend the memory that we already have, that we're already using, beyond the physical memory we've actually got on the machine. So we'll take a look at that too. All these are new features in 2014. First of all, I'm going to show you the Table Memory Optimization Wizard, and this allows us to take a classic on-disk table and migrate it over to an in-memory solution. And there are some restrictions. For instance, you're not allowed foreign key relationships. You're not allowed triggers. You're not allowed check constraints. And things like this, you would have thought, hey, well, just about all our tables have those things. But if some of you are out there who turn back the clock to SQL Server to 4.2, a long time, that was 1993. But in those days, we didn't actually have constraints, so we actually had to do all of our validation checking either through triggers or store procedures, and or in the application itself. So it kind of changed the mentality. But if you're looking at 50 times performance gain, then that's an okay thing to kind of move your validation from the actual constraints to store procedures. Of course, you're not allowed triggers with this solution, but you can easily put your validation in store procedures or in the application itself. So it's a different mindset, but again, the motivation is up to 50 times performance gain based on high throughput. And this wizard will also, if it does highlight certain things that aren't allowed with the in-memory solution, it'll have a little show me how link that you can click, and it'll give you hints and tips on using store procedures, for instance, to validate. And of course, we can do the natively compiled store procedures as well, so that if we do have to lean on store procedures a little more, that's okay. We're going to get better performance as well from there. So anyway, that's the wizard that's going to help us. This is once you've converted a table or migrated a table to on memory, what you'll see is with memory optimized equals on, and so it'll load the table in memory when the database starts and comes online. And the durability is still there, so it still will write to the transaction log on disk, which is very important for recoverability, of course. So when you commit a transaction, it has to be durable. So the transaction log is still written to on disk, but the table itself is updated in memory. So if you do have a failure, you can still recover all committed transactions up to the point of failure. So there's durability built in, and that's what the create table looks like. Now, in terms of the stored procedures, now we have, if you are accessing in-memory tables within a stored procedure, you're allowed now to make them natively compiled. You say with native compilation, and it will allow that to be pre-compiled into machine code before the server actually starts. So that will be available, and that will speed up your stored procedures as well. So it'll take up less memory, and from the first execution they'll be efficient. And so that is a nice new feature as well. And to extend the buffer pool, of course the buffer pool holds all the data pages typically that are being currently read and most frequently read. Those are that buffer pool can become full, and pages have to be rotated out of the buffer pool. So we want to make obviously as much memory available to that. If we are memory bound, then we can extend it using SSD. So this is a new feature in 2014. Here we're extending the buffer pool by 50 gigabytes, and you're actually allowed to go up to 32 times what the server normally gets, and extend that to SSD. So that is a new feature too. If you're memory bound and you need to extend a little bit, you can do that now in 2014 as well. Now I'm going to show you a demonstration here of the in-memory OLTP. I'll start with the Memory Optimization Advisor. So let me just escape out of PowerPoint here, and we'll go off to my test machine. Now what I've done here is I'm using Windows Azure as my test bed, if you like, and the Windows Azure and SQL Azure platform obviously is available on the web. And what I do when I'm testing, I just set up a free trial, and you get 30 days free trial. And I must admit, I happen to every 30 days go through setting up a new test bed and such. So it's call me cheap if you like, but anyway, it's free. What can you say? But obviously, if you really want to do some serious work, you're going to start paying Microsoft a monthly fee for all of this. But I'm going to show you my free trial anyway. And so I've already set this up, so I'm going to go to my Azure portal in the cloud, and it allows me to log in. So I'll go ahead and log in, and I've set up a virtual machine here. What's nice feature that's new in Azure is that you can set up virtual machines, which effectively it's any machine you want to set up, and it's hosted by Microsoft, so you don't have to worry about spending big money on hardware, or a lot of times you don't have to worry about uptime and downtime and such. And backup and recovery, it's all provided for you for that monthly fee. So and when you set up your free trial, you actually get $200 free so you can kind of gauge how long it takes to spend $200. Of course, you don't actually pay them $200, but you can see how I've got 14 days left and $75 left. So I think I've been anyway, you can kind of gauge how much it costs. But I've set up a virtual machine here for 2014. Let me go back to that. And I've set up a SQL database as well, and a cloud service so I can access my virtual machine. I've got a storage account for some extra storage and so on. So anyway, that's what I've got set up here. And when I set up the virtual machine, what I did was I clicked the new button here, and it allows me to choose an image from a gallery, and I chose this one to run Windows Server 2012 R2 using the RTM version of SQL Server 2014 and Enterprise Edition. and it comes with a preloaded image and everything's ready to go, and so you don't even have to install SQL Server. It's all ready and available. So you can choose from any one of those images if you want. So I've already done that, so that makes it easy too. And I've got this running, and all I have to do now is connect to it. So I'm going to click the connect button, and this allows me to connect through RDP remotely through remote desktop. And I'll be connecting to the cloud through the internet, and of course there's security. So enter our password to connect to my virtual machine, and essentially this is a virtual machine hosted by Microsoft, and it's running Windows Server 2012 R2. So we have the modern interface and such, and of course we can switch to the desktop interface if we like. So I've got Server 2014 installed, ready to go, and of course you can start off SQL Server Management Studio in 2014, off you go, and it's all ready and running and ready to go for the demo. So anyway, that I didn't have to do anything except set up the virtual machine, and you can do some experimentation now. So we're running here SQL Server version 12, and that's 2014 under the hood. And I've got some databases. I did upload some databases to my virtual machine, and I've got some AdventureWorks databases out there, some test databases, so that everything looks good there. Now, what I also did was I set up a demo that's provided in Books Online and through Codeplex. So you can go to codeplex.com, and they have a sample for the official release 2014 RTM, and you can download that. So this is on codeplex.com, and this is a free website available from Microsoft that has all sorts of solutions and such. And you can download this, and all the instructions for installing this demonstration and this sample is on Books Online itself, in the official Books Online help of the system of SQL Server 2014. So you can actually go to Books Online and read up on how to install this solution using the AdventureWorks database. It'll describe what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to test on disk versus in memory and see what the gain is in performance and such. And it'll also show you how to do some stress testing and some multi-threaded, multi-user testing, and provide some realistic performance results. So anyway, so you could do this too. I just downloaded the solution and loaded it onto my virtual machine and ran it. It's based on the AdventureWorks sample. So what they did was they took a few tables in the AdventureWorks database and migrated them to in-memory tables, and they're labeled significantly there with in-mem at the end of the table. So I'm going to focus just on that sales order header table there, and they've also got an equivalent on-disk version, so we can compare apples to apples kind of thing. And what I'm going to do is load 100,000 sales orders at the same time, simulating 100 users accessing the database at the same time, and see what performance we get between on-disk and in-memory. That's the idea here. And so anyway, that's and now to actually measure the performance, we're gonna use a tool here that Microsoft have provided for us called OStress, and it's part of the RML utilities. And again, they show you how to download that and such, and do some testing. So anyway, that is what I'm going to show you. Now I'm going to go back to Management Studio, and just to show you those tables in the database. Here, for instance, we have the sales tables, and we have the sales order header on disk there, and the sales order header in memory down here. And before we attempt to create an in-memory table, the first thing we need to do, though, is to update the database itself to allow for in-memory tables. And the way we do that is we provide an in-memory file group. There's a new type of file group in the database called an in-memory, memory optimized data file group. So this is new in 2014. So this tells the database that we are going to have some in-memory tables in this database. Now, not all the tables have to be in-memory. Some can remain on disk, but the hot tables you probably want to have loaded into your memory optimized data store there. And what happens is that's loaded into memory as soon as the database comes online. So that's the first step. Then what you can do is you can look at tables that you might want to migrate to in memory. And for instance, say here's this on-disk table. Currently, if I wanted to migrate that to in memory, I could right-click and say Memory Optimization Advisor, and that is the wizard that we showed in the slides there, and this will guide you through evaluating any incompatibilities that may exist in the table currently, and it'll guide you through creating a copy of that table, and it'll help you actually pump the data over to the new table. So it leaves the original table untouched and creates a new table based on the new specifications. So we're going to, I'm just going to start this up. And it, first of all, does a little validation. And oh, actually, I clicked on the sales order detail table. But anyway, here's it's found there's an incompatible constraint there, and so it's passed that there's no triggers on this table. There's no foreign key relationships on this table, so that's okay. But it has found a constraint, so that is not compatible. So what we would do is at this point, if we were new to this situation, we'd click on Show Me How, and that would open up Books Online, and it'll tell you how to move your check constraints and foreign key constraints, for instance, or other constraints to stored procedures. And it'll actually show you some examples and how to do that. And as I said, actually in the old days, that's the way we did things before we had constraints in the first place. So that is some nice guidance there. And also, if you are going in memory, you can lean on natively compiled stored procedures. So you can go ahead and click this link here and start to use natively compiled stored procedures, which will give you good performance as well. So even though you might lean on stored procedures more, you'll get good performance from them as well. So anyway, that is something you do as you go through this this wizard. Now they've already done this. They've already converted. So we want to do some testing here. And again, if we look at the Books Online guidance here, we can see how to run this stress testing tool, OStress. And it's part of the RML utilities, which is stands for Replay Markup Language utilities that Microsoft have produced. So these tools are all for testing high-performance situations for high-throughput, highly contentious type applications, and simulate hundreds of users connecting at the same time and seeing what performance you get and what bottlenecks you get and so on. So that's what this is all about. And again, it's free download. It shows you some code. This code they've set up to insert 20 sales orders per connection, per iteration. So you can bump up to hundreds or thousands of users all inserting sales orders at the same time and see what contention you get. And they start off low with 10 users doing 5 iterations each on their same connection, on 10 different connections, and then 20 orders per iteration. So that ends up with 1,000 sales orders. So that's pretty tiny kind of throughput to start off with. But then you can put it up to millions of sales orders at the same time, and then you start getting your bottlenecks, and the in-memory solution starts paying off big time as soon as you get hundreds or thousands of users doing the same thing, doing similar activity at the same time. So, and they provide the code. For instance, here in memory, this is the in-memory code we can copy, and this is just for 1,000 sales orders. So I can copy that to the clipboard, and it tells us we have to start the RML command utility, which is over here. I can click on that, and this is just the command prompt that we run these stress testing tools from. So I'm going to paste that in, and we just paste in the code, and this is going to run a store procedure to insert 1,000 sales orders into the in-memory table. Now, before I execute that, I'm also going to start up one that I'm going to use for the on-disk solution as well. There's another copy link down here that we can use for that. So I'm going to switch over, and this one's going to be on disk. And this is the code for on disk. So of course we can make this into batch files or command files and such. But in the back into Management Studio, before I start this again, I'm going to actually start up a script that just counts the number of orders in each table. So this just tells us our starting point. So we've got, on disk we've got 31,000 sales orders, and on both on disk and in memory. So that's our starting point. Okay, so we've got 31,000 to start with. Now, to do a good test, I'm going to go with the on disk solution first. And instead of starting with 1,000 sales orders, I'm going to go to 100,000, because at 1,000 you're not going to see too much difference at a small workload. So I'm going to bump up the number of users from, it has a -n switch there for 10 users. I'm going to bump that up to 100 concurrent users. And each user I'm going to have, instead of do 5 repetitive iterations, it's going to do 50 repetitive iterations. And each one's going to insert 20 sales orders. So if you do the math, it's 100,000 rows. And this is for the on-disk table. So I'm going to kick that off by hitting Enter. And off it goes, and it's now running. And what you can do during the test is you can go off to Task Manager and kind of take a look at the performance of the system as it's running here. So the CPUs, I've only got 2 dual-core CPU here, but it's humming away there. And you can launch the resource monitor and kind of monitor everything and see how it's doing. Okay, so it's inserting 100,000 sales orders here, 100 concurrent users, and multi-threading, parallel processing. But I've only got 2 core CPU here, but still, there's a lot of disk activity going on. There's going to be some contention here that hopefully we won't see in the in-memory solution. So I've got here, dual-core CPU. The in-memory solution is going to run even better with more cores, of course. And the memory is, of course, is pretty low. I've got a 3.5 gigabyte memory here. Of course, more memory is going to be better. But I'm just doing a simple test here. And of course, we can monitor disk and so on. It looks like it's finished there. And so let's pop back to that and see how long it took. Whoops. See how long it took. It took 1 minute and 13 seconds to insert 100,000 sales orders with the sales order details and so on. So that's the benchmark, the disk method. That's the classic method. So let's try and do the same thing with the in-memory table. So I'm just going to switch back here, and I have to remember to do the same test. So I'm going to change that -m or -n switch to 100 users, and to the replay to 50 iterations per user with 20 sales orders each. Again, that's going to be 100,000 sales orders. So I'm going to kick that one off, and off it goes. And we can wait for that. And this is the in-memory solution. Again, kicks off CPUs firing away there, but there it's gone in 11 seconds. So the same 100,000 sales orders has been executed in 11 seconds. So that's about 75 seconds, 11 seconds. So 7 times. Just with 2 cores and less than 4 gigabytes of RAM, I've got 7 times performance gain. And of course, if you read up on this, the more CPUs you have, the better. They did some tests to translate performance gains to 50 times with 24 physical CPUs and 24 physical cores and lots of memory. So anyway, that's a way you can do some benchmark testing to show you actually getting some gains. Then there's also a new report that you can run against your in-memory table. Here I can right-click on the table and choose reports. Oops, actually right-click on the database rather. Sorry, and under reports, there's a new standard report called memory optimized reusage by memory optimized objects. So you can launch that now and get an idea of how things are performing from a memory usage point of view for this new in-memory solution. Anyway, that's the in-memory solution. Let's switch back to the slides. Anyway, you get an idea, and of course that's all in Books Online, so you can test it out just as well as I can. Of course, when you attend the training course, you do all sorts of additional testing as well using this new solution. Now, another feature I wanted to show you was clustered column store index, and this is new in 2014. In 2012, as I mentioned before, we had the non-clustered column store index, which was a good solution for high performance. What that solution did was produce a highly compressed version of the columns of the index. Instead of storing information by row, it's storing information by column, and it would do massive column compression. So these indexes are very small, and they get very good performance for data warehouse type star queries, what we call complex joins with a data warehouse or a star query. But the problem with the non-clustered column store index in 2012 was that it was read-only. Your table had to be read-only while that index was available. And that wasn't such a big deal with data warehouses because normally at nighttime, well, normally during the day it's read-only, which is fine, but during the nighttime we pump in millions of records into the data warehouse. But at that time, normally we remove the indexes, load the data, and add the indexes later for performance reasons as well. So it wasn't such a biggie, but a lot of people did want this technology with, and at the same time as being able to change data in the table. So now that's what this index provides in 2014 is the clustered column store index should give you similar performance to the non-clustered equivalent, but allow updates. Now there's a big restriction here. If you do use this technology, it must be the only index on the table. So that it's an all-purpose index. But if again, if this is what you want, this is how to do it. And it's the clustered column store index. So I'm going to show you this and how to create it in the demo as well. So I'm going to switch back to my virtual machine on Windows Azure, and I'm going to use a different database here. I'm going to use the data warehouse version of AdventureWorks for 2012, and that I've uploaded to 2014, so it's already upgraded. And we have some tables here. I'm going to specifically look at the fact internet sales table, and currently there's one index on this. Now again, this is a clustered index. It's based on the primary key, which is the normal best practice. That is the only index on this table at the moment. But of course, if you might have many indexes already on your table, and so remember that what I'm going to show you, it has to be the only index on the table. So anyway, that's what our starting point is at the moment. This is a classic clustered index, and there is a view here that will do a star query for us that I'm going to run against. So I'm going to run this view quickly just to select information, and that actually is actually accessing the facts table and some other dimension tables in the data warehouse, doing a star query. And if we want to have a look at all the different indexes that are being accessed, we can click on the actual execution plan button here and rerun the query, and it'll actually show us all the different indexes that are being accessed here. And it'll show us the multi-table join and the multiple indexes that are used in this join. It's actually an 8-table join. And so here's the clustered index being accessed and the performance information. So the clustered index, it's a small sample, but it's operating pretty well. But we want to get these figures down lower if possible. So this is a clustered index scan, and of course we try and avoid scans if we can. But let's take a look at the column store indexes. Now, in 2012, what we could do to improve performance on a typical fact table was we could right-click and say New Index, and we could choose the non-clustered column store index. And that was new in 2012, and that still exists. And we can go ahead and create an index based on one or more columns. And a lot of times, if our queries were accessing most of the columns, we would select most of the columns. In this case, actually, I'll select all the columns. But the difference here is that it'll do massive column compression. So this is going to be a lot smaller and a lot more nimble, a lot more high-performing than the clustered index itself. I'm going to go and create that. But in 2014, this restriction still applies. The table has to be read-only while that column store index is available. And so at this point, we can't change the data in the table, but we can get some good performance out of it. And again, during the day, our data warehouse typically is read-only, so it wasn't such a big deal. But now if I look at my execution plan and we take a look at what indexes are being accessed, we can see that it picked up on that column store index, and we're getting better performance. So about 10 times better performance based on the column compression and the internal organization of that column store index. So it's perfect for star queries. But the problem was we can't do updates. So people kind of worked out workarounds like having delta tables and things like this where you do the updates and have the read-only table in a separate place. But what's new in 2014 now is you can create a new clustered column store index. So that's new in 2014, and that allows you to do updates while it's in place. But the trade-off here is it's not going to let you create one unless it's the only index on the table. Also, the CCI, as it's called, the clustered column store index, it can't have a primary key. The table can't have a primary key, and yeah, so there's some restrictions here, so that you have to adhere to. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get rid of those indexes. So I'm going to delete the clustered index first of all, and get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of that column store index that I just created. So there's no other indexes. And then it should allow me then to create a clustered column store index now that I've removed those indexes, and I actually removed the primary key as well there. Now this is a clustered column store index, so by default it's going to include all the columns. So I don't actually have to select anything here. I can just click OK. And for all the columns. But again, it's going to do this massive column compression that makes it much smaller than a normal clustered index. And it's internally organized by column rather than by row. So again, at this point, I can run the query and analyze performance, and we should see that it's picked up on the new index. And there, yeah, there's the clustered column store index, and it's getting similar performance to the non-clustered column store index, which is good, which is 10 times better than the original clustered index. But the point here is we can do updates now. So if you need this technology, it's there for you in 2014. So that's a nice new feature for data warehouses if you need it. Okay, and the final feature I want to show you is the new cloud migration wizard, which allows you to migrate a database from on-premises to the cloud. And again, there's some restrictions, so this wizard's going to guide you through those restrictions. For instance, all tables need a clustered index in SQL Azure. So that is one restriction they'd advise you on during this. And there's some other fairly minor restrictions, but essentially it'll tell you as you go through. Now, there is also an alternative wizard provided now in 2014 as well to deploy a database to a Windows Azure VM. And we'll see that SQL Azure is a separate version of SQL Server hosted in the cloud, but if you set up your own Windows Azure VM like I've done, you're actually using the native version of SQL Server, so there's no restrictions as such. So you can do anything you like with that solution. So you don't have to have clustered indexes and so on. So you can do anything you like. But I'm going to show you the first method first, and then I'll show you the VM wizard as well. Yeah, in the interest of time, I'm just going to show you this one demo. Actually, it's one cloud migration wizard. It's the new cloud migration wizard. So let's take a look at this one, and then we'll be able to take some questions. Now, if I go to Windows Azure, I can see all my items here. I have a database already set up in. I have a database already set up here called T-SQL 2012 in SQL Azure. And this has already been migrated, but I'll show you how I've migrated this through the wizard. Of course, I have to connect student. I should spell properly, not studnet. Okay. And off we go, and we connect. And what Microsoft do is that they host a database server and with a fully qualified domain name that they give us, and then we can connect to it from Management Studio remotely from anywhere directly to the cloud. And so that's really how a SQL Azure database is set up. So really, you remember that FQDN there. It always ends in database.windows.net, but the first part is what's unique to you and to your server, and that's what you use just to connect from Management Studio. So I'll let that connect, but what I'm going to do is switch back to my virtual machine, which could be any machine in the cloud, and or any machine on premises actually. And what I'm going to do is I want to migrate this database to SQL Azure. So I'm going to use that deploy database to Windows Azure SQL database. And again, it'll give you advice as you go through as to what you need to change. And I'm going to connect to that very same server that we just looked at. And you can only use SQL Server authentication with SQL Azure. So I'm going to connect that way. And of course, I've got a database called T-SQL 2012, so I'm going to call this one T-SQL 2012 New, and click Next, and let it convert. Now, of course, if it hits any restrictions at this point, it's going to tell us, but this database hopefully will just go straight through, and of course, if there's anything that's in violation, we're going to have to fix. But this wizard will actually now create a database in SQL Azure, and we'll create tables. Whoops. So it looks like we're trying to reconnect here. Okay, so hopefully we didn't have any interruption there. But for you, I had a little interruption for some reason there. And so it's migrating and migrating the tables over to SQL Azure and pumping the data over as well. So it's doing all of that and pumping the data into SQL Azure database. So it should be done momentarily. It's not a large database here, but and we're done. Okay. So that's worked okay, and now we have a database migrated to the cloud. That was an on-premises, if you like, database going off to the cloud. Even though I'm running on a virtual machine, it could be any on-premises database. But now if we go off to back to my Windows Azure list of databases here, we should see a new database. There's the new database, T-SQL 2012 new. If we go to our management portal for the database, we should be able to see all the new tables. And all the tables will be populated with data, and now hosted by SQL Azure. We go into design mode here. It's just initializing. So there's a web interface for SQL Azure. You can look at the tables and the views and store procedures through the user interface through the web forms. But you can also do it through Management Studio. So here, for instance, the HR employees table there is the new database. And if we click Edit and take a look at what columns that particular table has, and we can look at what indexes and keys that table has. So we can look at the indexes in a graphical sense, and we can actually look at the data as well. So just make sure that the data has been transferred also, which it has. And you can also connect to that database through Management Studio. If we go through Management Studio, you can connect to any SQL Azure database. Here, you just provide the FQDN of that database server and provide your SQL Server authentication. Click Connect, and you should be able to see those databases directly in Management Studio. And then you can see the tables. And this, remember, the database has just been migrated, so I can run select statements against it and actually get the data out of the cloud. So now that database is hosted in SQL Azure, and we successfully migrated from a traditional database. So that's a new wizard in 2014 to help you migrate to the cloud if you need to. All right, so just to summarize, what I wanted to show you there is three of my favorite features in 2014. In-memory, OLTP solution, the clustered column store index, and the new SQL Azure migration wizard. In terms of training that you might want to get to ramp up on SQL Server, both 2012 and 2014, a lot of people are looking to upgrade their skills from 2008. It seems like most people in production these days are in 2008. And to help you get up to 2012 and 2014, we have various different courses. We have some new boot camps available. The MCSA The Solutions Associate certification has 3 exams, and we have a 9-day boot camp for that. If you want to get that out of the way, instead of taking 6 months, you can attend a 9-day boot camp. You get all your exam vouchers. You get 6 months of access to labs 24 hours a day. You get 6 months of access to qualified mentors through chat. You get the training kits officially from Microsoft Press and online reference books and so on. You get transcender practice tests as well. So it's an intense boot camp, but you get 6 months of access to all sorts of things for after the class to help you prepare for your exams. And then the MCSE boot camp, which is the next level up, the Solutions Expert, we have 2 new boot camps, and there you choose your flavor of whether to focus on the data platform or whether to go for business intelligence side of things. Both of those have 2 exams, and same facilities are available. It's all on the Global Knowledge website. And if you're interested in 2014, there's a great new course just been released that we're offering, and that's called Updating Your Skills to Microsoft SQL Server 2014. And of course, it's going to cover new 2014 features just like I showed you, but it actually includes a lot of 2012 features as well, so that have been improved in 2014. So if you're looking for a course to go straight from 2008 to 2014, that's a perfect course for you. It's a 5-day course. It just focuses on what's new since 2008 R2, and includes and you use the 2014 virtual machines, very similar to what I've done here in the demonstrations. Okay, so it's all on the Global Knowledge website, so take a look, and hopefully we'll see you there. We offer courses on the virtual platform, similar to what you're kind of looking at here, and with interaction and lab support through the web, or in any of our training centers across North America and across the world. All right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. So let's open it up for questions now. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to try and help out.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I just want to remind everybody that this webinar is being recorded. We will send you a link to the recording as soon as it is available. If you do have a question, please use the questions panel. Just type in your question and click send, and we will try and get to as many as possible today. If not, we will try and reach out at a later date to follow up with those we can't answer today. But the first one I've got here is the in-memory option available on 32-bit?
That's a very good question, actually. This in-memory OLTP solution is only on the 64-bit platform, and actually it's not on the 32-bit. So 64-bit only, but most people are running 64-bit anyway, and that's where you get huge memory allocations. So yeah, the answer there is 64-bit only is that solution.
Okay. Can you disable the primary key in order to create clustered column store index?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one, Michelle? Sorry.
This might have gone to a little bit back in your presentation, but this one was, can you disable the primary key in order to create clustered column store index?
That's a good question. Yeah, the primary key does not it cannot be present while you create the clustered column store index. That's correct. To actually disable it, that's a good question. I don't know exactly. I suspect not, but that will disable the primary key and disable the clustered index that's already present. But then when you create the clustered index, I bet it chokes and says, hey, there's a clustered index already, even though it's disabled. So I would suspect the answer to that is no, but I'll have to follow up on that to be absolutely certain. So I would say not, but with a qualification there. I think you have to get rid of the primary key itself.
Okay. When migrating a database to Microsoft SQL Azure, does it migrate the corresponding login for users granted access into this database?
The answer to that is no. It does not. You would have to create the logins on the SQL Azure platform separately. And remember, only SQL Server authentication is supported. But yeah, you'd have to set those up separately.
Okay, does loading the table into memory slow down boot time for the database?
That has to be done initially. That is true. When the database comes online, the in-memory tables have to be loaded into memory. So there is some overhead for that. That has to be evaluated. It's not rated as significant, but obviously there is some overhead there. But so you'd have to do some performance testing, and again compare apples to apples versus on disk versus in memory. So, but once the database is up and running, it's obviously based on concurrency and contention. You're going to get a order of magnitude better performance from the in memory if you have that type of OLTP environment. So yeah, it all comes out in the testing. That's a good question, though.
Okay, the in-memory option, is there some kind of recommendation on memory sizing, or say a % larger than table size currently on disk?
Yeah, in Books Online they do go into some recommendations there for in-memory tables. So if you read through that article, for instance for the demonstration, they actually have links to recommendation pages that you can read up, and they do have some recommendations, some benchmarks. But again, the official answer typically is it depends on your situation. But they give some realistic suggestions in there. So yeah, definitely refer to that in Books Online.
Can you update on-disk and in-memory tables in the same transaction?
Yes, actually you can. A typical database will have a mixture of on-disk tables and in-memory tables, and they can both be updated together in the same transaction. So yeah, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, good.
Okay. Are there any enhancements to always-on availability groups?
Actually, yes. The always-on availability group was introduced in 2012. And that allowed you, we nicknamed it Database Mirroring ++. And the reason for that was it made database mirroring look much better because you could have 4 read-only replicas in addition to the primary replica. And now in 2014, they've enhanced that. One of the things they've done is allow you to have 8 read-only replicas now, plus the primary. So you can, that's nice. You can scale out a bit further, but yeah. So and they've done some other enhancements as well, yeah, that's all part of that new course on updating your skills to SQL Server 2014. So that's good one. Thanks.
Okay. Can you migrate 2008 database into 2014 and skip 2012?
Yes, certainly. Microsoft have continued with their 2-version backward compatibility. So with 2014, you can upgrade straight from 2008 straight to 2014 because 2008 will include 2008 and 2008 R2. So from a migration point of view, they count as one major release. So you can go straight from 2008 to 2014. And we see a lot of customers actually wanting to do that, to be truthful. So I think that's going to be a popular migration path.
Are there any good blogs or websites on 2008 migration?
I think Books Online provides some support there, and there's also SQLcat.com, which is the customer advisory team, or SQLcat.com. I think that actually passes you straight into MSDN these days, but you can still use that website, SQLcat.com, and that gives you some real-life projects that have actually been documented for early adopter customers who've been guided by the customer advisory team at Microsoft into successful migration. So I usually keep tabs on that so that I'm not tied down by AdventureWorks all the time. That you're actually looking at real databases instead of just sample ones. So that's the resource I would go to look at real life studies on migrations, so that's SQLcat.com.
Okay, and we're just about out of time, but I did have one other question. The Windows Azure platform, does that require an additional license?
No, actually, you actually pay for it as a monthly fee instead of actually paying a separate license. So you don't need a separate license, but they will charge you. For instance, the virtual machine that I'm running there is charged basically by the minute, and over time they charge you by the month, and they bill you by the month. Now, so because I'm cheap, I kind of turn off my virtual machine when I'm not using it, so I don't get charged. But I'm using this free trial, but then you get that $200 free access. But you don't want to burn that up too quickly. So, but if you're running a real production machine, it'd be a monthly fee according to what edition of SQL Server you're using, and what edition of Windows you're using, what virtual machine you're using, how many CPUs you're using, how much storage you're using, and so on. So it's they charge you by usage, by resource usage, basically, but the edition license is included when you install the VM, and they just bill you monthly.
All right, well, it looks like we are out of time, so thank you so much, Brian, for a great presentation, and thank you all for attending. If you've got any further questions, feel free to reach out to Brian at Brian.Egler at globalknowledge.com, I believe. Is that correct, Brian?
That's correct, yeah, thank you, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you guys so much, and hope everybody has a great day.
You too, thanks.